We're going to be June 12th. We'll be in Singapore. It'll be a beginning. I don't say, and I've never said it happens in one meeting. You're talking about years of hostility, years of problems, years of really hatred between so many different nations. But I think you're going to have a very positive result in the end.
That was President Trump Friday announcing that the June 12 summit with President Kim Jong-un is back on after meetings this week with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and a top North Korean official. Those meetings capped off by a visit to the White House Friday, where the North Korean delegation delivered a letter from Kim Jong-un to President Trump. Earlier, I spoke with retired four-star General Jack Keane about the expectations for the June 12 meeting. So we have the report of a letter from Kim Jong-un to President Trump, apparently saying, I want to have the meeting, but no demands and no concessions. Is that enough to go ahead with a summit?
Well, first of all, I think the letter is in response to President Trump's letter to Kim Jong-un, and he ended his letter when he was terminating the summit saying, get back to me if you want to go forward. So that's kind of what this is, and we shouldn't expect much more than that. But I think we got to pay real close attention to what Secretary Pompeo is saying. Well, he says on the one hand, we've made great progress. On the other hand, he's also saying there's significant challenges and differences. And I think what they're trying to do, as in his words, set the conditions. In other words, resolve some of these differences so we can set up at least the first summit, because they're likely to be more than that, where there can be some success, where they can at least agree on a framework going forward. The president is really holding all the cards here, Paul. I mean, he doesn't need this summit as much as the North Koreans need it. And this period that we're in right now, although we're getting right up close to the summit, he still has significant leverage. And I'm sure that he's using that leverage to the fullest with his envoys, Pompeo, and also Kim Sung over in North Korea.
But it seems to me that if there's just a meet and greet summit, that is, if there's really no tangible movement on the North Korean side towards denuclearization, then that's a victory for Kim Jong-un, because he'll have sat on the stage with the President of the United States, and it'll have turned out to be kind of a meet and greet. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree with that. If that's all there is, then the president, at a minimum, should delay the summit and apply more pressure to try to get these differences to close a little bit. And if he can't, he's just got to back away. He cannot go in there and just come out with a framework for a peace treaty ending the war and bring back the families from the North and the South and reunite them and agree in general that the security of North Korea is paramount to the United States. That would be an unsatisfactory solution.
Okay, now there also seems there's emerging here a difference on the pace of denuclearization, with the United States saying it must be complete, verifiable, and irreversible. And the North Koreans suggesting that, well, we want this to be in a phased form. We want it to, kind of you do one thing and we'll do something. Is that what you see as the biggest gap that has to close?
It certainly is, and they want to do this over a period of many years. Certainly, They want to outlast Trump's first term because they don't know if he's going to have a second one. The president, I think, is right on the mark when he's saying, I want to get this done during my presidency, during my first term. 2+ years is sufficient time to get it done. We can phase it during those 2 years. I'm not going to pass this problem on to my successor as it's been passed on to me. And I think that's a reasonable goal to have, and we should stick to it.
As we know, we've done this, bought this horse twice before. That is the promise of denuclearization over stages. And both times the North Koreans reneged. They stopped. They kicked out inspectors. So, I mean, it's a bit of a gamble with the United States, with any president, taking their word for it again.
Oh, I totally agree. And the Russians and the Chinese are both advising Kim Jong-un to do the phased operation and push it out over many years for the very reason that the North Koreans have taken advantage of us in the past. It's a promise that is not kept. And that's clearly the path that we would be on if we buy into that.
Can the U.S. president put the status of U.S. forces in South Korea on the table to negotiate in return for some promise of denuclearization?
Yes, I think he can. That would really unnerve the Japanese quite a bit. But that doesn't mean it would have to be an immediate withdrawal or a complete withdrawal. That could be done over time. And it doesn't have to be all at once. It could be a gradual withdrawal of those forces. Listen, if we have a peace treaty and the war has ended and Kim Jong-un is denuclearizing and taking down all of his systems, the reason why those troops are there starts to go away. We'd be able to pull those armies away from each other on the DMZ. I mean, that's sort of a happy solution, and it's unlikely to get something like that, I believe. But nonetheless, it would delegitimize the presence of 28,000 troops. I think the president has in the back of his mind, not initially, but eventually he would put those troops on the table to get a final completion of denuclearization.
What about security guarantees that the North Koreans are talking about for Kim Jong-un? I mean, is that something that we can really promise Kim? I mean, how can we guarantee his continuation in power, particularly if they open up to the world and people see just how destitute the North Korean people are?
Well, it is their number one issue. Economics, prosperity is not their number one issue. This is the issue. It's the reason why they have nuclear weapons, and it's the reason why they are weaponizing ICBMs, because they want to hold the American people at risk to guarantee the preservation of the regime. We'll never get a deal with them, even on the best of circumstances, unless we're able to convince them that we are providing a guarantor of their indefinite security. Kim is a young man, and he's clearly got that in mind as he looks to decades ahead. He wants that regime to be secure.
All right. Thank you, General. Appreciate your being here.